Lloyd Austin will focus on discussions into the implementation of the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, during his visit to Manila.
The future of the Philippines, and for that matter the Asia Pacific, will always have to involve the United States simply because those partnerships are so strong.
The Philippines has agreed to expand U.S. military presence here with the addition of 4 more sites for the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA.
We discussed expanding the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, which allows our forces to operate together more efficiently from key sites across the Philippines. We talked about how we are co-investing in EDCA sites to support security cooperation, combined training, humanitarian assistance, and disaster relief.
These efforts, which we hope to jointly undertake, is in line with the guidance of President Ferdinand Marcos, and that is for the Defense Department to make sure that not an inch of our nation's territory will be lost, and our people's safety and security will be ensured by the strengthening our diplomatic relations with our allies.
The United States is expanding its military presence in the Philippines. That's through more locations for EDCA, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement signed some 8 years ago. And while it is officially meant to augment disaster response and other humanitarian support, EDCA came in at a time when China was showing hostile behavior over at the West Philippine Sea. Let's talk about EDCA, China, and America in this episode of The Chiefs. Ako po si Robbie Alampay. Kasama ko po dito sa Mandaluyong here in the studio. Ed Lingao of Fun News. Online, kasama natin from Quezon City, Lucy Cruz Valdez, Head of News 5. And maya-maya po sasamahan din tayo ni Ami Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief ng Philippine Star. Chiefs, good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
Lucy, habang wala pa si Ami, ano bang balita?
Well, yung EDCA nga, pero pag-uusapan natin yan mamaya. But in the meantime, yung isa pang malaki naman yung overpriced cameras, no? Yung last week, overpriced computers. Ngayon naman, overpriced cams. So, what do you think of that, Ed? You're the techie here. What's your opinion?
Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask kasi sa akin lahat mahal eh.
Pero ako, I can vouch for that. Pero teka muna, lilinawin ko muna.
Kasi prices eh.
No, but before we get to the price, linawin ko muna, confirmed ba yun? I mean, I know this came out social media. I know it went viral. But has the DepEd actually confirmed this is an actual purchase?
Well, DepEd, they have this today?
Spokesperson Puma. Yes, spokesperson Puma. The budget, for example, is 500,000 for one camp order and one camp. So, kinonfirm niya. And sabi niya, nag-research daw sila, parang nag-canvas sila, and ito talaga yung lumalabas na prices.
Ay, baka you're referring to yesterday's stories. If that's the same one.
Pinalo through. Yeah.
Okay. Kasi as of yesterday, ang intindi ko kay Attorney Poe was number 1, yung specific region kung saan daw dapat gagawin yung purchase na yun, hindi daw tinuloy. So, hindi daw natuloy yung deal. Which was another question altogether kasi yung picture, may picture ng sticker dun sa camera. So,
yes, that one, he doesn't know that.
That's what I'm referring to.
All he's saying is it's hard to see whether that's the camera in fact.
It's the same one.
But as far as they're concerned, the figures reach up 800,000 for two cameras.
That's for a set of 2 cameras and 1 video cam and a microphone.
Yes, and that's just for live stream.
Although yung original nag-post dun sa the camera with the sticker, the DepEd sticker, is a friend of mine who's a photographer. I haven't gotten in touch with him yet, pero siya yung nag-share ng ng photo na yun eh. And from his point of view, it was an entry-level camera that was not worth
Yes.
150,000.
Let's
Yes.
let's
Right.
now get to the point about the price. Kasi ayun nga, yung tanong sa'yo ni Lucy, expert po to sa online expert to sa mga...
Ganyan, misis ko baka nanonood.
Geek po yan.
Hindi, pero I mean, that is clearly, it's the same thing that happened with the laptop, di ba? People just go to their favorite online stores,
And you
quickly canvas, and it quickly makes sense na one, you know this is not even the cutting-edge model, and two, you know that this is clearly overpriced, at least based on at least 8, 9, 10 suppliers that immediately comes up.
And if you buy in bulk, then you're supposed to get a discount back. So, ibang usapan pa yun. But you just have to be careful that you get the specs right. Kasi you may have the same model, but you may have different specs. Like, for example, a laptop of the same model can have an i5 or an i7 down the line, as well as a different size of hard drive and different memory.
Yes, but you're being gracious kasi...
And I'm being
di ba,
gracious.
parang-
I'm just saying na may variance in ang prices depending on the specs, and that's why it's important for you to look at the specs, not just the model.
Okay. Anyway, hopefully, I'm pretty sure at some point in the next episode we'll be talking about this and a lot of other things at the DepEd. In the meantime, we will speak with our first guest after the break. We'll talk about EDCA. The Chiefs will be right back. The Philippines has agreed to allow the United States to have a wider access to military bases in the country. Beijing has responded. It says this will exacerbate regional tensions and it will endanger regional peace and stability. Joining us on the program, security analyst Chester Cabalza. Good evening, Professor, and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening, Chiefs. Thanks for having me back.
And I might note, kasama na rin po natin si Ami Pamintuan. She's joining us from the port area, from the offices of the Philippine Star. Now, Prof, let's start off with this. How does this change? Dinagdagan na yung sites for EDCA from now it's up to 9, I believe, when it used to be just 5. How does this change EDCA? And I guess more importantly, how does this affect the West Philippine Sea and our relations with China and the United States?
Well, I see it as a groundbreaking agreement because of the recent announcement today with the additional 4 EDCA sites, no? And this will focus on the northern hemisphere of northern frontier of our country. If we take a note on it, the EDCA is a supplemental agreement of the VFA. And the VFA is a reciprocal agreement, meaning to say that the Americans can send their troops to the Philippines, vis-a-vis the Philippines can also send our troops to the US. But this time around, this is on the irrotational, non-permanent bases in the Philippines. So that is the difference compared to what we had in the past with our mutual defense treaty and, of course, the military bases in the Philippines. But what are the repercussions of this? I know China is watching right now. They're monitoring what is happening right now in the country because most of these additional military bases which are naval and aerial in capacity, because it broadens the external defense of the country. And definitely it targets China basically. So I know that they are watching right now. They wanted to learn more, but technically this is a good news for the Philippines-US bilateral relationship. Remember that we are talking about a relationship here, and we see this relationship now being nurtured and fostered because we have agreed to the Americans, and we see a stronger ties, and this is a reaffirmation of our alliance with the United States.
Pero Prof, if you look at it from the point of view of China, I know they haven't announced the four new locations yet, pero from what we're hearing, the locations appear to be designed to address situations that may arise from both the West Philippine Sea and Taiwan. For example, ang titingnan doon nila is facility in Cagayan, facility in Isabela, which may be meant to address issues in Taiwan, and Zambales and Palawan, which may be meant to address issues on the West Philippine Sea. So from the point of view of China, mukhang they're being hemmed in, I suppose. And then China's now saying that this is exacerbating things. So what can we expect from China?
Well, definitely, China is not happy about it because the gun is pointed against them, and we're just waiting for the trigger to be fired. But definitely, the point here is that we are well prepared for that. The reason why we had pivoted before with the U.S. during the time of President Benigno Aquino, and then to Beijing during the time of President Duterte. This time around, we are doing neutrality policy, and we had a recent official visit to Beijing last time, and we were quite disappointed with the visit because of the supposed hotline agreement. And after our president went back from Beijing, we saw again miscalculations and miscommunications. It seems like there is a doctrinal problem on the ground in the South China Sea, which we see a disconnect, and policies are not cascading so far in Beijing. So meaning to say that the U.S. is aggressive, and they are offering concrete infrastructure defense programs and plans for us, meaning to say that between these two suitors that we have right now, it seems like the U.S. is giving us high hopes and future plans for us. So bilang tagatanggap ng kanilang interest, we have to consider also our national interest. And I think the U.S. is making good rounds this time around, and they are in good shape, and meaning to say that they're getting good momentum as of the moment.
Isn't this a little too provocative? I mean, are we not afraid that this might provoke China even more? Plus, doesn't this fly in the face of what seemed like President Marcos's attempts to be diplomatic toward China, to show that he's a unifying factor, and so on, no? But aren't those, in a way, contradictory?
Well, actually, we've experienced a lot of worst-case scenarios with China already, starting since 2015 with the Mischief Reef, and then 2012 you have the Scarborough Shoal, and then Witsuit Reef in 2019, and up to now with presidents from Aquino to Marcos, they are doing the same thing. What else can they do for us? We've experienced a lot of their worst behaviors against us, and it seems like we are performing a maritime resiliency so far.
Professor, if I could just take that, because you used the word twice, and saying that that's the worst case scenario and that's the worst that China can do. Is it?
Are they capable of doing so much more?
Yes, they are, because their intention is to forcibly retake Taiwan. And there are only two things that could happen there. Is they go to war. One is to go to war. And secondly is to disrupt all the multilateral mechanisms that the world can offer to them, because they wanted bilateralism from their own perspective. And I guess with the recent domestic problems that China is experiencing lately, hounding their interests also, I think they are a little bit precautious about it, because mounting a war right now is very expensive. Not even China and the US can do that, because it's very expensive when you go to war. That's the reason why you do either proxy wars by diplomatic means. That's the reason why you have to strengthen your alliances and multilateral mechanisms, or at the same time you bring your Wolf warrior diplomats to these countries where you think you can get their attention.
Professor, China is not going to war, but they can do two things. One is they can accelerate their construction of artificial islands in the South China Sea, and they can continue stopping our fishermen from fishing. Ngayong gabi, nag-issue ng statement yung Chinese embassy. Sabi nila, this agreement between the Philippines and the US should not target any particular country. Realistically, what are you expecting from China in the coming days? Kasi remember when Nancy Pelosi was the House Speaker, you saw how China reacted when she visited, and which was followed by lawmakers, and then the EU and the Europeans also went there. You can see how China reacts now. They have to assert their dominance, they have the military might, of course, and dominance in the region. So itong nangyari ngayon, that's a follow-up to Lucci's question.
Ma'am Amy, this is how I saw it. The more it became disadvantageous for China, for the reason that they were able to expose their formations, because at that time they were rattled by the U.S. and its allies, and then all of a sudden China used their naval formations, including their drone formations, and their enemies were able to witness and see those formations. So strategically speaking, that is an exposure. They exposed their plans. So we know what they're thinking right now. So on the other hand, ipit sila ngayon, because the only thing that they could do is, of course, yung economic rapprochements that they could offer to us through their Build Road initiative. Of course, they have their bank right now, the AIIB, but at the same time, there is still a looming problem in their domestic issues, particularly with the zero-COVID policy that became unsuccessful. Plus, their economy right now is not doing well. And then, of course, there were observations that the third term of President Xi is not working. And also another thing is the aging population in China, which ranked recently. And because of that, the workforce in China will not help their economy. So that's the problem that China is facing right now. And it was a boomerang on their part. It didn't, their strategy didn't work all of a sudden after all these years that they were trying to get our attention.
How much can they hurt us economically? Kasi after the arbitral ruling, pati yung konting tuldok sa mga banana natin, ayaw nila tutukan, di ba? Meron daw mga infestation. I mean, you can think of a lot of reasons to keep out agricultural produce from a particular country. Ngayon, how much can they hurt us economically, apart from preventing our fishermen from fishing in our own waters?
Well, of course, let's look at the statistics right now. Recognizably, China is the major trading partner of the Philippines. It's the #1. But I think it was a wake-up call also for the US, Japan, and European economies after we snub, particularly during the previous administration where we snub all of the American efforts. But this time around, the Americans were very responsive. Actually, they are very aggressive. The mere fact that they are investing on the EDCA sites, those are economic and strategic investments. And the mere fact that they are offering economic plans and programs for their Indo-Pacific economic framework, that means that they are serious this time around, because they knew their vacuum during that time. They learned their lessons, and now they wanted to project their presence, because this is like a last battle for the US and the European powers. If they cannot get well, if they cannot plan well for the Indo-Pacific strategy, then definitely China will be the head of this region. The prognosis is that if China will not make it until 2028 to 2030, then China will never become an economic superpower.
So if you think that this is not going to escalate into an all-out war, that it's basically just a positioning, then what is the end goal of the U.S. coming in here and setting up more bases?
Okay.
What is the end goal is for the Philippines? If the objective is to deter their dominance and their influence, but they're not really gonna, go into an full-fledged war, what's in it for us? Doesn't inviting U.S. in just put us, on the firing line as far as China is concerned? No?
I have 3 reasons for that, Ma'am Luchi. One is that, first of all, the U.S. would want to win back the Philippines because they know what we can deliver for them because of our geographic importance. And we know for a fact that they were deprived for the past 6 years because of our policy in the West Philippine Sea and the way we pivoted to Beijing at that time. Secondly, they know that our region, particularly the Indo-Pacific, which they coined basically, would be the future engine of economic activities. All of the rich countries actually will be in our region. That's the reason why we see a lot of positive projections in our economy. And by 2037, it is projected that our country will be one of the biggest economies in the world. That is a projection because we know that this is the fulcrum. This is the center, the meta center of economic activities in the future. And thirdly, of course, it's they're laying down their Indo-Pacific strategy. And the mere fact that, once you have a strategy, it will guide you on what you will do today and in the future. It's like a guide, and they know that the future is in our region. So they want to cement their presence. They want to hold on to us because they know that the Philippines is a good partner. And we have historical times. Definitely. Culturally, politically, we have common denominator. We have close ties with them. And I think it is not surprising that we said yes to the additional EDCA sites because we have common ground. We have the same common interest. We have the same national security threats against China. That's the reason why that we said yes today with the Americans in terms of expanding our EDCA sites. It's a little bit controversial because, of course, in the past, EDCA was almost at the brink of its extinction, but all of a sudden it resurrected because there is a need. We saw that the security landscape has changed tremendously, and we have to be responsive about that. It just so happened that China is not responding to our needs. Then we have another suitor, that is the United States. Then we have to at least align our interests with them.
Prof, let me take it from a different angle. What about Taiwan? If things in Taiwan escalate into a full-blown war, into a war, and what if the United States decides to use the facilities in Cagayan and Isabela, which is relatively near Taiwan? Where does that put us? Because it's not like Vietnam all over again in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
Vietnam could not do anything against us, even though we were being used as a jump-off point from Clark and Subic for operations in Vietnam.
The Taiwan conundrum is a litmus test on how we will define our foreign policy and alliance with the United States at the same time with China. But I agree with you, Sir Ed, that of course the warfare in the past is not the same as what we will see at present and in the future. What we will see would be cyber, electronic, drones, and perhaps submarine naval warfare. So it's going to be a different form of warfare. If you notice, the identified EDCA sites are naval camps or naval naval camps, basically, naval and aerial camps, because those are the requirements for external defense. it's no longer guerrilla warfare that we will be seeing, but instead perhaps we will see drone fighting, which we saw during the Pelosi visit, that at the time when Pelosi was in Taiwan, China, the People's Liberation Army, sent all their drone formations and their naval power in the median line. And we saw it. It was exposed. So those are...
No, I agree with you, sir. I mean, that we may have to be ready for non-traditional warfare, cyber attacks among them. But I guess that really wasn't the question. I mean, what are we expecting? I think the real question was, if things escalate with Taiwan and the United States uses us as a staging ground, the attack is not on us. Diba? So, but then the US basically uses the EDCA sites as the launching point, as the launching site. Doesn't that officially drag us into the war with China and Taiwan? The question is not really so much what will it look like. It's not, and to that point, it's not reassuring at all to say that actually hindi naman tayo atakin ng eroplano. Bubugbugin lang tayo cyber attack at magkakaletse-letse lang yung mga sistema natin.
Which is why I was referring back to the 60s and 70s with Vietnam. Kasi Vietnam could not do anything. Well, North Vietnam could not do anything against the Philippines because it was just North Vietnam. Now we're talking about China.
Right. That's the reason why it would become a breach of neutrality by the time these things happens. Because as of the moment, we are performing this neutrality policy because we're trying to do delicate balancing act, not to bring us to this war as of the moment. But of course, reality bites. The mere fact that we have engaged with the United States right now, approved the additional EDCA sites, that means that we are one step with our alliance with the United States, meaning to say that if, we have to consider the human factor. What if Xi Jinping becomes, things like, will think like Vladimir Putin this time around. And he wishes to invade Taiwan, then definitely the Philippines would be at the brink of this war, basically. So meaning to say, it's not an excuse now. It's a necessity, basically. That's the reason why we have to act faster, because ultimately we want to brace preparedness here. Otherwise, if we are waiting for what China can offer to us or the US can offer to us, and then we have a weak military right now, we are still modernizing it, then what would happen to the Philippines? That's the reason why you have to take risk. In strategy making, one of the considerations there is you have to take a risk. And this time around, our president and our country is making a choice by deciding on a very important decision and by taking a risk right now. So definitely, I agree with what you said there, that there will be repercussions with our actions, and China is watching us, and definitely they will act. Definitely, we still do not know what would happen because we've experienced their of course misbehaviors in the West Philippine Sea, and we are immune already with those actions. And we hope that things would fall on the right track. We need diplomatic mechanisms on this matter.
Okay, Mr. Cabalsa, maraming salamat po.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
sir.
Security Analyst Chester Cabalsa. Let's start up another conversation. After a quick break, keep it here on One News.
single ticketing system for traffic violations in the metro will be implemented next month after NCR mayors approved it.
Sa ilalim nito, wala nang kumpiskahan ng lisensya. Online na ang pambabayad ng multa at pag-iisahin na ang rate sa buong NCR.
This is a very historic moment for all of us. Malaking tulong ito sa ating mga mamamayan, sa ating mga motorista. Malaking ginhawa ito sa kanila sapagkat una-una, hindi na kukumpiskahin ang kanilang lisensya. Pangalawa, kung sila man ay matikitan, pwede na sila magbayad kung saan man sila sa Pilipinas. Kaya hindi na nangyayari ang kailangan pang pumunta sa City Hall para tubusin ang lisensya at magbayad. Malaking ginhawa ito.
The Metro Manila Council has approved the implementation of a single ticketing system. How will this affect motorists? Let's discuss it with Acting MMDA Chairperson or Chairman, Don Artes. Sir, magandang gabi and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Magandang gabi po.
Magandang gabi, sir.
Well, sir.
Magandang gabi po sa inyo.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us again. Sir, ingay, malino naman eh. By next month, standardized rules, standardized fines, electronic payment, wala nang kumpiskahan ng lisensya. Pero next month na nga to, what else do we need to know before it goes into effect?
Opo, may mga proseso po tayong kailangan gawin bago tulay ang ma-implementa itong single ticketing system. Unang-una po, kailangan magpasa pa ng kanilang ordinansa ang bawat LGU para po i-adapt itong Metro Manila Traffic Code. At meron po on the part of MMDA, kailangan po namin bumili ng mga ICT equipments para po ma-interconnect itong ating mga LGU sa LTO system para po mapasama sa database ng LTO yung mga huli na gagawin na mga LGUs. At ganoon din po para po magkaroon ng payment portal at mabayaran yung mga penalties through digital payment system.
Pero sir, hindi ba you're going to come up with a unified code, so to speak, no? Para lahat ng mga 17 LGUs, iisa lang ang mga sets of violations, fines, etc., etc. Kasi ngayon iba-iba eh.
Iyan nga po yung in-approve Ms. Lucci nitong nakaraang February 1, yung Metro Manila Traffic Code, kung saan nag-identify po tayo ng 20 common violations. At ito pong 20 common violations na to ay magkakaroon ng definitive na penalty at iyan po ay magiging common sa lahat ng LGUs.
Ito na yun. Alright.
Pero
so,
sir, may
ang
mga
alin dyan, sir?
Pero sir, may mga di ba may mga syudad sa Metro Manila na kanya-kanyang republika pa rin. For example, Makati has its own rules as far as the number coding is concerned. Wala siyang window hours. I think the same goes for Las Piñas. Pati ba ito na-rationalize o naging standardized o may puwang pa rin para magkanya-kanya?
Meron pa rin pong puwang para magkaroon ng kanya-kanyang policy insofar as number coding scheme is concerned. Ating pong tandaan, may mga peculiar na circumstance ang bawat LGU tulad po ng Makati na inyong nabanggit. Alam naman po natin na ang Makati pa rin ang premier business district sa buong Pilipinas. Marami pong sasakyan na pumapasok dyan during rush hour, pagsimula ng opisina. At ito pong pagpalabas-pasok ng sasakyan ay halos buong araw. Kaya po sila ang nakakaalam ng kanilang pangangailangan. Kaya binibigyan po natin sila ng leeway na mag-impose nitong number coding scheme para sa kanilang lugar. At ang napagkasunduan lamang po namin ay magkakaroon ng common penalty which is 500 insofar as number coding scheme is concerned or violation.
Mr. Artes, nabanggit niyo na rin yun lang yung penalty kasi yan ang isang malaking pinoproblema ng siyempre, mga motorista. Magkano daw ba, tumaas daw ba ng gusto under the standardization o bumababa o ganun pa rin? Can you give us an idea, halimbawa yung beating the red light, anong nangyari dun sa fine doon?
Ang beating the red light po ay disregarding traffic sign which is penalized by I think 1,000 pesos. Ang masasabi ko lamang po, nagkaroon po tayo ng matrix ng iba't ibang penalty sa bawat LGU. At atin pong in-even out yan. Meron pong LGU like kunyari disregarding traffic sign, meron pong LGUs na mataas, 2,000, meron naman pong
Ay, hindi
mababa,
pa rin
500.
pare-pareho.
Hindi, under the old system.
Oh, yes.
Habang hindi pa po ito na-i-implement itong ating bagong Metro Manila Traffic Code.
Okay.
So ang ginawa po natin dito sa ating bagong i-implement na Metro Manila Traffic Code, inisa na lang po natin yan at naghanap po tayo ng common ground. Pinag-isipan po yan, pinag-usapan ng mga enforcers, representative po ng mga LGUs. At yan po ay napagkasundoan namin yung penalty na 1,000 na sa tingin po namin ay nag-average ng mga penalties ng iba't ibang LGUs.
Sir, sampulan nyo lang kami. Anong pinakang mahal? Anong pinakamahal na penalty? At saka ano yung pinakamura? Para lang natin yung range.
Ang pinakamura pa rin po ay number coding violation, which is 500. Binabaan din po natin yung penalty para sa mga tricycles na bumabaybay sa mga kalsada na hindi nila dapat puntahan. 500 din po yan. Ang pinakamahal po ay yung violation ng Anti-Drunk and Drug Driving Act. 5,000 po yan. Pero inadapt po natin yung penalty na provided under the law. Dahil batas po ang nagtatakda ng penalty para dyan.
Okay. Sir, itong bagong sistema, hopefully really this addresses a number of things, mas efficient, walang nahahassle and so on. Pero yung on the other side, yung corruption, will this get rid of yung mga kamot-ulo?
Ano yung kamot-ulo?
Yung magkakamot-ulo, kasi inaantay kayong mag-usap, di ba? Parang, will this, kasi parang the technology is there for paying, di ba? But I imagine, lalong-lalo na kung makita ko yung presyo, di ba? Tapos makita ko na parang ganun, either the driver or the officer, magkakamot ng ulo yan. Tapos alam mo naman, universal signalis yan na baka pwede tayong mag-usap. Does this necessarily address that? Does this address the corruption issue as well?
Yung Metro Manila Traffic Code, I don't think standing alone will address the corruption insofar as traffic law enforcement is concerned. Pero tayo po sa MMDA kasama ang mga LGUs will be investing in technology para po mawala or mabawasan at least itong mga corruption na inyong nabanggit. Unang-una na po dyan, ang MMDA po ay nag-procure ng mga body cameras para po yan po ay nakalink sa ating command center kung saan makikita natin real-time yung ginagawa ng ating enforcers, lalong-lalo na po kung sila ay mag-apprehend ng motorist. Pangalawa po, nagpapa-proof of concept po tayo ng portable or handheld ticketing device kung saan ito po ay makakapag-scan ng lisensya, makikita kung peke, at doon po magkakaroon ng option to pay cashless through digital payment system pa rin po. Una-una po, ito pong ating handheld device, mawawala na po yung paper ticket at mawawala na rin po siguro yung pinag-iipitan ng pera pag nagkakaroon po ng negosyasyon o lagayan. So, ito po yung ating pinagtutuunan ng pansin. Tayo po nga ay mag-i-invest sa technology para po mawala or maalis yung corruption sa ating hanay.
Mr. Artes, nabanggit niyo yung technology, no? And sabi niyo, it has to be interconnected, the system. And you are procuring the IT system. Kaya ba yan within 2 or 3 months? Kasi I remember kahit nung pandemya, they tried to install a system na interconnected. Wala, nagka-bulungan. Diba? Nag-rumble-rumble. Kanya-kanya binagsak din ng mga LGU kasi hindi daw talaga nag-work yung mga supposedly interconnected. So, paano yan? Kaya ba yan in 2 or 3 months, you think?
Kaya naman po. Unang-una kami po sa MMDA connected na sa LTO system. Yung pong aming NCAP. Kaya po, hindi ko alam kung na-experience nyo na, pag na-red flag kayo na nagre-renew ng lisensya or ng rehistro, pag po meron kayong huli ng MMDA ay nagre-red flag at hindi kayo makakapag-renew ng inyong lisensya o rehistro hanggat hindi nyo po binabayaran sa MMDA yung fine. At yan po ay real-time. Pag binayaran nyo sa Bayad Center or sa amin, automatic po nabubura yung huli. So may experience naman po kami in so far as interconnectivity is concerned. Meron naman pong specific na technical specification ibinigay sa atin ng LTO. At ito po yung susundin natin sa pag-procure po ng mga gamit para maging seamless yung interconnectivity ng LGUs sa LTO.
Nabanggit niyo po yung no contact. Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa naman nababalik yun. Ano ho? Tama ba ako?
Suspended pa pa. Suspended pa pa.
So, ang isa nga sa mga problema nga ron yung mga nahuhuli, hindi nila alam na flag na pala sila. At pag nag-apply sila ng lisensya, doon na nila malalaman na laki na pala ng fines nila, no? At nahihirapan nga naman sila. Yung ba may erase ba yon under the new system as in updated kaagad? Hindi yung mabibigla na lang kami pag nag-renew kami. Doon pa lang namin malalaman na ang dami na pala naming na-violate.
Opo, itong interconnectivity po na ito, mai-include po sa database ng LTO yung mga huli ng mga LGUs, including yung NCAP. Pag allow na po siya ulit ng Supreme Court na lift yung TRO, ito po ay makakatulong dyan sa nabanggit yung problema dahil automatic po pagkahuli ng mga LGUs, mare-reflect na po sa system. So may way po of checking whether or not kayo ay may huli tulad sa amin sa MMDA. Although ina-update po yan ngayon, meron po kami app na may huli ka ba? Kung saan itatype niyo po yung inyong driver's license or yung inyong plate number at lalabas na po doon whether or not meron kayong existing na huli sa amin sa MMDA. Ganun pa man, itinry po namin i-address yan or ina-address namin yan dito sa Metro Manila Traffic Code kung saan tayo ay naglagay ng mechanism to contest yung mga huli. At yung pong 10-day period within which to pay yung penalty ay magsisimula lamang kung through no contact apprehension yung pagkakahuli. Within 10 days kailangan bayaran yung penalty upon receipt, actual receipt po ng notice ng pagkakahuli.
Mr. Artes, nagka-problema lang naman sa NCAP nung pumasok yung private, di ba? Yung private service provider. Dun sa MMDA, wala naman kaming nababalitaan masyadong reklamo. Anong impact na itong single ticketing system on that private service NCAP system na actually challenge sa ngayon sa Supreme Court? Paano yun? Mag-iiba na yung di ba? Sistema?
Hindi po ako privy dyan sa third-party provider ng NCAP. Kasi po sa amin po, in-house po kasi kami.
Yes.
In fact, hindi naman po kami kasama sa idinimanda sa Supreme Court, na damay lang po kami ito sa TR. Although may gag order po ako or kami, so hindi po kami pwedeng mag-discuss extensively about
Pero kaya nga hindi ba naging redundant na yon dahil meron kayong sariling NCAP and then you have these cases against a private service provider and mga 5 o 6 lang yata yung na LGU and you have a single ticketing system, ibang-iba yun doon sa mga ini-impose nung under the NCAP nung private. Paano yun?
Mako-cover na po yan. Mako-cover na po yan dito sa ating Metro Manila Traffic Code kasi nga po nagkaroon na tayo ng common penalty. So, yan po yung susundin.
Okay.
Paano po makakatulong yung Metro Manila Traffic Policy sa parking in particular? Kasi napakalaking problema ngayon ng parking sa Metro Manila. Halos lahat ng mga lansangan ngayon, punong-puno na ng mga nakapark. Meron po ba tayong, meron bang mailuluwag sa parking or tulong na maibibigay sa pagpapaluwag ng parking problem sa Metro Manila, itong Metro Manila Code na to?
Meron naman po. Unang-una po, naglagay po tayo ng penalty dyan na medyo mas mataas. 1,000 po kung merong driver at 2,000 po kung wala. So medyo masakit na po rin yung penalty na yan. At yan po ay mag-i-increase pag second or third violation. So Ang thinking po namin, hopefully, na punitive talaga itong ating mga penalties na ini-impose na hindi naman po sobra. So, hopefully, ito pong Metro Manila Traffic Code na ito ay mag-instill ng discipline, lalong-lalo na po kung lagi-lagi tayo nahuli. Kami naman po sa MMDA ay mas pinapaigting pa po yung operation natin against obstruction po sa ating mga lansa.
Sir, nabanggit nyo na
pa rin yan, no?
Sir, sa single ticketing na...
Yes, sir.
Nabanggit
Yes, sir.
po yung sa single
Sorry.
ticketing, di ba? Na pagka nahuli ka, you have the option to pay. Tapos sabi nyo nga, real time. Pagka nagbayad ka, yun na, ano na kaagad. Nasa record ka agad na bayad ka na. I'm just wondering kung merong pasaway na, let's say, afford niya, bayad siya ng bayad, and so on. May quota ba yun? Ano ba si Ed Linggao, ilang beses nyo nahuli na beating the red light or kung ano-ano. Pero nagbabayad siya. No? So in real time, nabubura.
Tataas sa insurance
Ganun
niya.
na lang ba yun? O may quota siya? Forever
Meron
nang hindi ko kumpiskahin yung, ano niya, yung lisensya niya?
Hindi po. Meron na po under the new law na demerit system. Dahil nga po pinahaba na yung period ng lisensya, may 3, 5 years, or 10 years. So, pag meron pong huli, meron pong point system yan, depende po doon sa violation. At pag naka 10 points na po, ay pwede nang suspindihin or confiscahin yung lisensya,
so may
even ng LGUs.
Okay. Sir, it's good that you
So,
pointed it out
hindi
kasi...
po pwede yung forever na bayad lang ng bayad.
Ano po pag walang pambayad?
Hindi po siya makaka-renew ng lisensya.
So, i-confiscate kung walang pambayad?
Hindi naman po. Pag-renew niya po kasi, naka-red flag yung kanyang lisensya na meron siyang pending na huli na hindi pa po nase-settle yung penalty. So, hindi po yan i-renew ng LTO.
So in effect po, your deadline, sir, linawin ko lang po. So in effect, your deadline to pay is the date of the renewal. It's not a fixed time na kailangan ka magbayad.
Nakalagay po sa atin sa traffic code natin na kailangan pong magbayad within 10 days. At hinayaan po natin, based on our discussion, ang mga LGUs na mag-adapt ng interest or penalty in case po na lumagpas sa 10 days yung pagbabayad ng lisensya.
Mr. Artes, bago nyo implement yan, are you planning to launch an information campaign?
Yes, definitely. In fact, hinahanda na po natin. Una po namin gagawin ay reorient or magkaroon ng refresher course sa ating mga traffic enforcers. Ganon din po sa mga LGU traffic enforcers para po ma-update yung kanilang kaalaman at maging masanay sila dito po sa bagong traffic code natin. Pangalawa po, maglo-launch naman po tayo extensively ng information campaign both in social media, print, and probably pati po sa mga TV networks.
Tapos may isa pang reklamo dati sa NCAP, kulang na kulang daw sa yung mga road signs na halimbawa yung infrastructure na nagdidirect kung pwede ka mag-left turn, mag-right turn, o tong lane na to, pwedeng dumiretso. Ano ba yan? Na-update ba yon? Pati daw mga road sign, mga speed limits, kulang. Are you planning to upgrade that as well?
Yes, meron na po tayong instruction sa ating mga traffic engineering center na maglagay po, may sarili naman po tayong gawaan itong mga road signs na ito. Minsan lang po, ang challenge namin ay yung gantry na tinatawag or yung pagkakabitan nitong mga road signs. Medyo challenging yan for us, pero rest assured na i-update po natin yan.
Meron din ba kayong balak na ibawas? Kakabuisit kasi. Meron ba kayong balak na mga mababawas na mga offenses? Halimbawa, marami din nagrereklamo, lumusot lang daw ng konti yung ulo yung uso ng kotse dun sa traffic box, yung yellow box. Violation na dun sa NCAP. 3,000 na kagad na sinisigil doon. Meron pa bang mga ganon na violation?
Asking for a friend lang, sir.
Pwede naman po nating i-contest yan under the Metro Manila Traffic Code. Sinimplify naman po natin yung process. I think kung mga minor lang naman po na violation, pwede naman po siguro pagbigyan. In fact, kami po sa MMDA, ang amin pong instruction sa ating mga traffic enforcers ay more on traffic management rather than mag-abang na magkamali yung mga motorista. Then pag nagkamali, tsaka huhulihin. So, ang aking pong instructions ay una-una maximum visibility. Dapat po hindi sila nakatago at nag-aabang ng nagkakamali din huhulihin. I-guide po dapat yung motorista sa tamang gawi para po hindi sila mag-violate ng traffic.
So sir, that requires a major shift in mindset kasi ang daming enforcers na apparently ang mindset nila is manghuli ka at kung kailangan magtago ka para makapanghuli ka.
In fact, meeting lang po namin the other day about it kasi noong pong weekend may nadaanan po ako, ihahatid ko po sa football game yung aking anak. Hindi ko lang po natigilan. Hindi naman po. Nakakita po ako ng enforcers namin na nag-abang ng ganyan. So, sinabi ko po sa ating general manager, si Colonel Lepana, na imbestigahan yung mga personnel po namin na nakastasyon doon sa particular na lugar. Dahil ako po mismo yung nakakita na nag-aabang po sila nagkakamali. At kasama na rin po dyan, sinabi ko rin po sa kanila na yung pong particular na intersection na yun ay nakakalito na lagyan po ng mga appropriate signages. Ganon din po no isang araw na kausap ko po si Chairman Altenco, sinabi rin niya po yung sa intersection ng Ayala, wala rin pong signage. Yung aming po mga enforcers ay instead na mag-guide sa traffic, nag-aabang po sa kabilang kanto at hinuhuli. Akin na pong pinaiimbestigahan yung 6 na enforcers na yan dahil po hindi naman po bawal yung manghuli doon ng pumapasok sa bus lane. Yan po yung mga proseso na ating ginagawa para po baguhin yung mindset ng ating mga traffic enforcers na instead na nag-aabang na nagkakamali ay kailangan po talaga ang unahin nila ay traffic management.
Ano yung mga traffic countdown timers? Lalo na doon sa mga mata-traffic na area na malalaking intersection. Nagrereklamo din yung mga motorista na iipit sila sa gitna and they are fine for that. Ang bagal-bagal ng takbo ng traffic, walang countdown timer, bigla na lang magiging red, ando sila sa gitna. Are you planning to add more countdown timers? Isa nga yan sa reklamo ng isang Supreme Court Justice, reklamo din niya yan eh.
Ang problem po namin sa countdown timers, nag-shift na po kasi ang MMDA sa sensor-based na traffic signalization system. Yun po yung ITS natin, Intelligent Traffic Signalization System, kung saan yung mga traffic signs po natin or signal or traffic lanterns ay hindi na po base sa oras. So meron po siyang sensors, depende po sa volume ng traffic. Yun po yung kanyang pinapatagal ang takbo. Pag konti ang sasakyan sa kabilang kanto, yun po ay maikli ang oras. Meron na po siyang artificial intelligence.
Considering the traffic in Metro Manila, hindi ba lalong magulo yan? Kaya nga maraming
kasi laging
hindi naman po siguro dahil ito po yung ginagamit sa South Korea at sa ibang major cities.
Hindi ka pareho sa atin.
May traffic din naman po sa kanila, hindi lang naman po sa atin. Lahat naman po ng major cities, I think, nakaka-experience ng traffic. And so far naman po, maganda naman po yung ating observation insofar as itong ITS natin. Kaya po, at yung timers po kasi is inconsistent dito sa ating ITS. Kaya po inaalis namin yung timers.
Lalong magulo. Lalong marami.
Hindi naman po siguro. Pag naman
dapat
po
isama niyo si Amin sa council niyo. Daming
Binilang ko na nga lahat ng timer dito.
Ang daming kliyente ni Ami
Bigat na nga.
Okay. Mga talagang
Stoplight na dinadaanan mo. Ang hirap.
traffic traffic critic to.
And I just want to clarify, hindi po lahat ng stoplight ay under the jurisdiction ng MMDA. Marami pa rin po dyan yung nasa jurisdiction po ng LGU. So, yung sa amin po ay yung nasa major roads lang, yung 7 major roads na under our jurisdiction.
Sige, Mr. Artes. Sir, maraming salamat po. Pasensya na po. Overtime.
Hindi, wala pong problema.
Ang daming unnamed sources ni Ami.
First-hand experience naman po. Kaya, okay.
Mr. Artes, maraming salamat po. MMDA Acting Chairman, Don Artes.
Thank you.
Salamat po at magandang gabi po sa inyo.
Daming asking for a friend ni Ami, no?
Siguro naka-10 points si Ami sa lisensya niya.
9 points na eh. 9 points ka na ba? Sige. Okay. Baka naman daw pwede pagbigyan yung lumampas ng konti. Pwede pa, Ami. Sige.
Gusto niya sabihin, baka pag-usapan niya.
Siya, magkamot ulo ka na.
Walang pambayad.
Uy, teka, overtime na tayo.
Okay, that's all we have for the Chiefs. We all what was discussed. We'll keep the conversation going. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Ed Lingao. We are One News, all sides, all the time.